Well, I think there's been a very considerable change in the potency of the green agenda in the property industry, because for a long time there were a few people who understood why this was important and others who ignored it entirely. But I think increasingly it's being seen as a central part of the challenge to the property industry. I mean, we're at a very difficult time, and everyone is finding things extremely tight. But they are understanding that they're going to have to meet wholly different standards and a very much tougher agenda, simply because, of course, property is responsible for perhaps the largest proportion of our emissions, and therefore climate change is forcing that on us. Well, as a major country, it seems to me the UK is probably ahead of the curve, but only just. A number of smaller countries have got there first in particular areas, not least, of course, in insulation that you find in the Scandinavian countries. There, the pressure of the expense of very long cold winters has had a very good result. We're beginning to learn that pretty quickly because of the increase in the price of oil. And the two things have come together. Britain is faced both with an understanding of the green agenda and seeing that it's the only way to make it possible for people to afford the overheads, both in houses and indeed in commercial and industrial buildings. Well, first of all, I think it's a question of competition. If you want to build buildings that people are going to buy or rent, then you've got to provide them with the lowest occupation costs they can. And if you don't have very highly efficient buildings in terms of the energy they use and the water they use, then those who do produce those buildings will win in the competition battle. And that's particularly true, of course, in housing, where individuals are buying the property in which they are going to live and whose overheads they're going to meet. Much more difficult in the complex business of building a commercial office block, where it may be financed by one organisation, it may be built by another, and it'll be rented by somebody else. It's much more difficult to get those levers in the right place. But increasingly, occupation costs are counting very considerably. So there is a straightforward competition reason. Secondly, there's a regulatory reason for meeting this agenda. We're going to have to. Governments aren't going to let us get away with it. Not only in the European Union as a whole, because thank goodness we're part of that union, because without that we wouldn't be doing as well as we're doing, but also the government itself and the opposition are all committed to raising our standards very considerably. Well, I think it's very important for the voice of the industry, like Estates Gazette, as it clearly is the voice of the industry, very important for it to show that it understands what the future is for the property business. And it needs to be able to say, as it does, that the green agenda is here to stay, that it's a crucial part of anybody's planning for the future. And by having these awards, it's able to point to the best practice, the best businesses, and encourage others.